You're sharing wisdom every time you play with your horse. They're sharing it with you, and you're sharing it with them. This takes a special kind of awareness, way beyond just training. In 26 years of teaching, I've learned this is my dream, to help students connect with wisdom. This is available to all of us. Join Brigid Pajunen, your host. She's mentoring here at Solstice Ranch, and she's going to connect with students from around the U.S. and share their journey, their experiences, and their learnings, their deep wisdom from their journey with their horse. I'm Amy Brimhall McCord, founder of Inspirational Horse. Enjoy.
All right.
Okay, well, it is fabulous to see you, Marcia, and I was hoping that you would be able to introduce yourself a little bit. Tell us, what your experience with Amy is, your experience with horses, how long that goes back, and just a brief intro.
All right. My name is Marcia Voskuil. I live in Wisconsin. I have been with horses probably for almost 15 years. However, I started in the 4-H realm of horses with my stepdaughter to do something that we could do together. So I learned my basic horse knowledge is from that. I always knew there was something more that I wanted a little bit with the horses, instead of just like there was no thoughtfulness around it. But I was a marine mammal trainer, so I knew what that thoughtfulness was, and I just didn't know how to get that with a horse, and open up that. So we did that for a few years. And then I was introduced to Amy because I purchased one of her horses, Costa. And my friend Cheryl introduced me to her and her teachings. And because I had Costa, I started going to Amy's clinics, and that just opened a whole new world for me. And I just grow every year with things that I learn from Amy, but also learn from my time with my girls. We have 2 full-size horses and 2 miniature horses at home right now. And right now we just do basic trail riding with them, but also that we do some therapy with some foster kiddos with our horses now. So that we went from, the 4-H shows, which was a great experience to learn, some basics and do that with my stepdaughter, to just being more intentional with our time with them.
That is fabulous. I grew up in 4-H with horses too, so I have very fond memories of the 4-H's.
Yes. Yeah. It's nice for the girls and boys to have the camps and just be kids on their horses too.
Yes. But you alluded to a number of things that I want to ask a little more in detail. First of all, it sounds like when you got horses again, you knew that from your experience as a marine mammal trainer that there was something else potentially there.
Yes.
And then then you said now with your horses that they're kind of teaching you, if I heard you correctly.
Yes.
So that is definitely one of the things I want to hear more about. Like, what did the marine mammals teach you that you knew when you came to horses? Like, ooh, there's something more here. And then what is happening with your horses now?
Right. So for me, the marine mammal world, training is such a big part of that, like using operant conditioning, positive reinforcement. And then creating that with an audience too. And, like getting people to love that animal and care about it, to have more of an impact on the environment and protecting them. And when I worked with them, you learn when you're with them every day, 8 hours a day, you start to see these little pieces, these little signals that they give each other, that they're giving you. that if you just come in for like a daily swim, let's say, or you're going in with just a daily session and you're preoccupied with your horse, or even like your dog, really like any animal, you're just doing your job, like you're just feeding them, you're just taking care of them. Don't get me wrong, those days happen, right? But you're not in the now with them, and they communicate in such a subtle way that if you really like start to focus on that, like you can expand your relationship with them. You can just notice like something could be off just a little bit, and you could be like, oh, I wonder why this is happening. Like an example for me, for my marine mammals, is we had a dolphin that would always leave session. And meaning like we would have sessions with them, we'd have people come and swim with them. And if you didn't pay attention to him, or you didn't, he would just like leave and be like, okay, now you can like run around the dock and let's see. And people do that, right? They create this game. It's no different if you go to catch your horse out in pasture and you start chasing them around. They're like, woohoo, this is awesome. Look at this person chasing after me, and we've all been there. But for me, I knew when we did our 4-H, Grace was lucky where she had a really well-trained horse. So like, even if she wasn't asking correctly, or if there wasn't the 100% paying attention or involved in the lesson, that horse knew exactly what to do. So for me, working with the dolphins and the sea, I worked with a lot of different species. So if you give that one-on-one attention and you're really focusing on what you're doing, there's always more there, and I wanted that bond that I had with my marine mammals with the horse. But I also was a little intimidated by the horse because I never spoke that way with them before. I knew it came naturally to me a little bit, but my fear held me back a bit. But then like going to Midwest Horse Fair and seeing these people really have that bond with their horse. And I remember being a little girl too, and my parents, like, we had a friend that was like, oh, we need someone to ride this pony, and my parents let me do it. But I remember being this little girl, and this teenage like college kid like could take off the halter and take off the bridle, and her horse would follow her with like what we call liberty, and like, now. And I was like, that's amazing. I want that, and now I have that. But it's just, when we started, I knew I wanted that. I just didn't know how to get there.
That is so wonderful. Wow. I love hearing about that path, and I am so envious of experience with multiple species.
Yeah.
and hearing how similar the desire to connect is.
Yeah, and it's also like how they connect with each other too, is like something, like the dolphins rub each other all the time. So to do a session with them just on rubs is like amazing, because that's what they do with each other, and that's learning that herd dynamic of the horses too, just like sitting and watching is interesting to me also, to see how like the dynamics could change in the day. If I walk out there or my husband walks out there, like how is that different? And I think we all create our own little way of communication. There's not one right way. Like, you could come and work with my horses and it would be different for you than I experience. So I think that's like a gift if you have any animals in your life, to really take that in and be like thankful for, they don't have to be like always obedient. They have their own thought process. So being able to be part of that is pretty special.
Oh man, I love that. I'm curious, in that way, the way every person and every animal has a unique relationship and can carry on a conversation that nobody else can have, because that's the nature of two beings with personality and individuality. With your stepdaughter and with you, as you've gone through maybe a new way of learning to be with horses, more like your understanding with the marine mammals. I'm curious, especially with your stepdaughter, are there ways that horses have supported her growth, or yours? Like, in what ways? Like, even what ways did the horses help you deal with some of the fear you might have had about changing your understanding of them?
Right. For Grace, I think her relationship with the horse was based around like hanging out with my friends, having a good time, just being a horse girl, like just
Right.
jumping on like the no fear of, and just like riding around the pasture with them with her friends, right? So when that kind of went away and she's kind of grew up, that kind of went away for her. So she's just in that, I'm finding myself in all different avenues of life right now, which, I appreciate because I went through it too. We all kind of have to find our own journey. For me, having friends that support me and just be like, so I had a fear of riding, and a lot of that I think comes from just like after having my son, like, I'm not going to bounce this way. What if something happens to me and I'm not there to take care of him? Like, all those weird things go through my head, and I trust my horses, but to get up for some reason is not, it's that fear. But then I have my friends that are like, we're here with you. You can take your time. We're right here and you're going to be fine. And then I also trust, like, I can sense now when I'm on Costa's back, like she like takes a breath, like, are you good? Like, we're good, we're gonna walk, so listening to her too has really helped me. But the horses, I can speak on some of the camps I run for foster care. So the horse, you always like have to be in the now, right? They always make sure you're in that space. And when you're not, they might be like, okay, well, I'm going to walk away, or I'm going to nudge you a little bit, or like, we're here now, right? And they don't necessarily like if you're like all over the place and not paying attention, because they live in that space. They don't live in what's going to happen in 30 minutes or so. When we bring these kids that are traumatized and have gone through a lot of trauma, it's interesting to me to see certain of my horses pick certain people to always help, and like the same type of people. So Rain always goes to the most traumatized teen boy and sticks with him. Like, and they want to act a little macho for a little bit and like, fine, I'll brush you. But by that, we do this all summer long, once a week. But by the end of the summer, like, they're walking her, they're talking to her, they're like, like, it's hard for these kids to say what's happened or have to be quiet in the now, or not feel like they have to go to therapy. They can just be present with them. And we do a lot of grooming so that it takes their mind off of things. They can be present, and the girls can just be there for them. And Costa, she will go towards the teenage girls more, but they all do well with all of them. They just impact certain people in a different way. My minis love the little kids, like they like, and they tolerate the older ones, but they're like, oh, they want me to do too much work. So so they all kind of they all pick and send out their own vibe to different kiddos.
Oh, I love that. So, the way in which you've witnessed horses supporting people, I think about hardened protective, traumatized adolescent boy. And what I think you're saying is you see how the horses allow them to soften.
Yes. Yes.
Which
Yeah.
so incredible.
Mm-hmm. And soften in a way that they don't realize they're softening, right? Like they're just being present.
Exactly.
And there's no judgment. There's no, the
Right.
horses, like you can just screw them, you can take them for a walk. Like, so one of the things we started last year is we take them for a walk in the woods for at least a half an hour every time they're here. And it's just going for a walk. Like there's no expectations. There's no like digging deeper. The horse doesn't sit across from them asking, well, how does this trauma make you feel? They can just feel and be there, and I feel like I felt that myself. They're kind of like my therapist. So, you know, if I'm having a bad day or I need to take a break, or I know I can just go out there and sit and just like breathe them in a little bit. And it's a way for me to remind myself to be grounded and in the space, like, because life can make it crazy. We all have these long to-do lists. We all feel the outside pressure of what society wants from us. And I think men and women feel this way, but I feel like as a woman, we have all these expectations that we put on ourselves, like taking care of the home, taking care of the kids, taking care of the animals, our own full-time job, and for me, like being on committees for school, am I involved enough? And we're foster parents, so taking in however many kids we get that time, so for me, they have kept me sane. Like I go out there, I seriously breathe them in, we groom a little bit, and they kind of look for that from me too. Like, hey, you haven't checked out on us. Like they like, once you speak that way with them, I feel like they demand that kind of talk, right? Like they don't want this just lawn ornament kind of thing. Once that conversation starts to happen, they're okay having it. Like when my husband goes out or my, son goes out to do chores, they're like, hey, I know you're here to feed me and we're good. But yeah, it's just the conversation. They're able to change and know the sense who's ready to be present in that space, I guess.
I have certainly grown in my awareness of that, having the privilege of being here with Amy. First of all, I echo the sentiment that horses are the balm for me. Like, just have to be in their presence, and I'm reminded what it is like to just be. And that is invaluable. And then knowing how, I think in one of Amy's wisdom series, she talks about the horses is wanting to know how available are you in this moment? How present can you be?
Yeah.
And that is such a gift of understanding that they can give us, what that is like.
And I think it's important to remember, like, I used to also put the pressure on me to be like, okay, I need an hour out there with them. But you don't, like, you just need, even if it's like 5 minutes, just to have that, like, it just does something for your health and your soul and like your mind, just to be able, like, what a gift to even have 5 minutes to be in the now, to be in the presence. And they don't need an hour, like they don't need this allotted time that you need to be with them.
Agreed. And I think maybe if I'm hearing you correctly, is that they don't need it and we don't need it. Like it's available. It's available the moment we step into that space. Like the horses really are great at inviting us into that, but I think most of us are really trying to take that with us
Yes.
when we
Yeah.
leave the barn.
Right. Exactly. And just being okay with what you can offer, that's okay. Like you have permission to
Right.
do what you can. Like,
Right.
don't make it another stress or pressure of the outside world, because that's not, they're okay with that, you
Right,
know?
exactly.
So,
Yeah, they are, I mean, they are masters at getting along with
yeah.
at people, like wherever those people are, they have learned to live with a lot over the thousands of years of our interactions with them. You talked a little bit about what you feel as a woman, how they support you. I'm curious. Um, I don't really know exactly how to ask this, because I do think horses support men in the same way.
They do, yeah.
But one of the things for me, I think that feels different is that I have never had the strength to overpower a horse.
Hmm.
And horses, yet they have allowed me to understand that, yeah, being with them doesn't require that.
Right.
And in fact, maybe is better without that.
Hmm.
But can you think of ways in which the learning for you as a woman has felt uh, unique in comparison with what horses are like with men? It's hard because we don't live in men's skin, so that's hard
Right.
for me to speak to. But
Hmm. You know, I think for me, you know, so I have a son who's 14. And then my husband struggled a little bit. Like sometimes their mentality is, but this could be any person, right? You walk into a pasture or a dry lot and you're like, I'm gonna catch you.
right,
Like they walk in with that like attitude, like, and my horses don't respond well to that, especially Costa. She's just like, ears pinned. That's not how you greet me. We're gonna have a discussion about this, you know, and for them, it's like a disrespect. Like that's how my husband describes it. It's like, you need to obey me, you need to disrespect, like you're disrespecting me, you're not listening to me. So for me, once we had a conversation around that, like, and I do this conversation, this bubble conversation with anybody that comes in with my horses. So like male or female come in and we talk about the bubble. Like, do you want someone to do this? Like, how does it feel when somebody treats you like this in school or at work, you know? And I think if you put it in those kind of terms, they start to understand. They'll have less trouble if they're respectful. And I think a lot of it is like they don't know how to be that way. Like you look at like the cowboy, you know, like Rain was raised by a very heavy hand man. And so like she's just used to turning really fastly. Like she's always nervous because she was always afraid to get hit or whatever, you know. And I think if you learn that, but then Rain is my dad's horse. Like he talks to her gently. He knows how to communicate with her and they have this really strong bond. So I think if anybody knows that connection, and how to speak, then they can grow with that and they're willing to learn. But for me as a woman, I feel, I mean, not to just speak for all women, because some women aren't like this, right? But for me, in the position that I play as a woman in this world, the nurturing part and wanting that calmness and that like not always having to put out a fire, or not wondering if they're gonna come to me, or are we gonna spook for this? Like always preparing for what could happen and preparing them for that is just something in my nature. So then it just helps my horsemanship that way. And it's something I learned a long time ago when I started working with animals. Like, you prepare for the what ifs, but I also do that with my kids too. Like, we prepare, like, for sports, let's say, like somebody, you're losing, and how are you going to deal with that? Like, are you going to get mad then? Are you going to lash out? Are we going to do this? So for me as a person, like, I try to have conversations around the what ifs or what could happen to prepare, to kind of prepare to have some peace and not so much chaos in my life. And the chaos is going to happen, but I feel if you operate more in that, okay, so chaos has presented itself, like, how are we going to deal with it? Are we going to like lash out and get mad, or are we going to use this as, oh, we need to work on this and do that teachable moment? So I just think, man or woman, it really depends on your personality and how you handle things. And if you're someone that is constantly used to like putting out fires and living in that stress, and you thrive on that, because, right, like, some people create that for themselves every day. And I don't know how people live in that space, but that's how some people only know how to live. So for me, I think that and then the horse is always living in that space, if they're working with them, that what's going to happen next space. But Rain is a perfect example. Like, she lived in that space for a long time, but now learning this different language, and like, really, like, and Amy helping us to speak that language so she understands, and kind of like translating for us what Rain is thinking in the moments of the chaos, so that we don't react and we can just really sit and listen to her, is a true blessing to us, because now Rain is turning into a completely different horse. Like, some people might just want to give up on a horse that can be like spooky all the time, or she's fine on the ground, but little things like the wind blowing too much could scare her, but now she's learning, like, it's okay. And that's what Amy is so good at too. Like, in those moments, if you're not, like, the special gift that Amy has to speak to the horse, to really listen and be in that moment of now with them, allows her clients, friends, people that join her teachings to be able to work through that icky feeling of, oh my gosh, what do I do? Do I have my rope here? Do I have my rope here? Do I back up? What am I supposed to do? So it may bring you into that chaos moment, but she helps create that piece of calm that you need to work through that, and that different language that's there, that you're just, like, you're reacting in the moment. And, it's just Rain is, and now Rain is like I said, she is like one of my best horses that's who she seeks out, that male that has the most trauma, and so I think it's just such a gift. And then when you are in those moments more often, you can relax, which helps them relax, and you know how to deal with that. And sometimes that's all people need, is someone to talk through and support.
Oh, I love that so much wisdom in that. Because I think that, again, one of the things I've really learned strongly is how, on the one hand, Amy really teaches us to listen to the horse. And then on the other hand, and have a conversation. But I think many times my part of the conversation has been a reaction rather than, rather than just furthered listening. Like, okay, I can just,
right.
I've heard it, period. Yep, acknowledged. And that
Mhm.
that I don't have to change my mind because of what someone else said and what the horse
Mhm.
said, that I can offer this steady, like, yes, I hear you, I am here, and I still think that maybe this is the way it ought to be. And I've
Right.
seen
Yeah.
such profound changes in myself, and that this works for me. This is wisdom for me, because when I have internal chaos, it's the same
Mhm.
thing. I think I need to react to it. Well, maybe I
Right.
don't really need to react to it.
Right. Well, for sure.
So
Mhm.
it's really, there's so much in what you said, Marcia, that resonated for me. Um, and it reminded me a little bit of the conversation that I had with another student yesterday as a part of this series, because you were talking about the just staying with it and being in the now when those moments arise, that there's chaos presented by the horse or the environment
Mhm.
or whatever. And this person said, when I asked her about, well, what do you think the art of horsemanship is, and she simply said, just staying, being in the now. That's the art of
Mhm.
horsemanship. And I'm wondering if that's also how you would answer that, or if there is another thing you'd like to add or expound on
Mhm.
for you. When you think of the art of horsemanship, what does that mean to you?
Yeah. I think the art of horsemanship is something different for every person that's around horses. Like you
Really?
could be an Olympic rider, you could be working in a rodeo, you could be,
Oh,
but you could be racing. Like, I mean, but everybody has their own definition because I really feel that each horse offers a unique
mhm.
way to communicate and something new to learn for yourself. So even if you have 20 horses, every time you work a different horse, your horsemanship's gonna change. And I think that's the key point, is to listen and really listen to each individual,
Mhm.
and I think that's what's really changed with my horsemanship is each one of my girls has a different way that I communicate. Like I can be like, oh yeah, well, she wants you to do this because of this. And
Mm.
she really is demanding you to shake her hand and say good morning before you just put that halter on her. Like she doesn't, that's not okay. And so they all have their own little quirks about that. And some people can say, well, they should just put that halter on. They should follow me when we go. That could be their horsemanship, and that could be enough for them, and that's okay. But if, but you also want to be respected. Like every human being wants respect.
Mhm.
And you can't get respect through demanding respect. They'll tolerate you. People tolerate you. People might fear you. It's just how we interact with one another. So for me, that's something that I had to learn too, because when I first started in the world, it was like back up, back up, back up. You move forward, you back up, back up, back up. You in an aggressive way, like not like, no, I really would like you to stand here. It was like an aggressive way, or you circle, 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 and you're like yanking on their mouth and you're doing all this. And for me, I just learned like that works for some people, but for me, it doesn't. Like I have this different kind of communication with my girls and horses in general. And I feel like I learned to listen. And then when they act out, there's maybe a reason why. Like, so let's figure out why. And it's no different than you going to work every day and your coworker is just like kind of crabby and on edge, right? Like, well, what's wrong? You want to talk about it? Do you not want to talk about it? So there's conversations throughout the whole way. And I just feel that, your horsemanship is constantly changing. You're always with different horses. The horses are changing. Our environment is changing. So just really sitting and listening like you would respect a person and do, I think is the key to that horsemanship. And, like really like getting out there and trying different things so that, because I know sometimes in mine, like in my learning, I felt stuck. And I was afraid to try new things or, like I'd go to like a clinic with Amy. She's like, what do you want to work on? I'd be like, oh, I don't know. Like, like you think about that, but then if you just start playing, you start doing this, then you're like, oh, well, I would like to see if we could do this together. How do we get there? And I think that's important too, is how to grow with each other too.
At this
I don't know
time,
if that was
with
a question, but
yeah, no, it's so fabulous. At this time with your horses, do you have specific dreams or goals right now with your horses that you want to tell us about?
yeah, I do. One of my dreams would be, on a professional level, I would like to open up more classes for families and kiddos, because I really feel with our mental health crisis right now that the girls could really help a lot of people too. And I want them to, other people to feel like what I feel. And I know my son is kind of learning that a little bit, like he needs to be outside when he's having a bad day and he can go walk by them or, so on a professional level, that's a huge dream of mine, to offer the horse to other people, just through groundwork and that. But for me personally is to still really learn how to listen, like, and not feel like, to really still be in the now. Like I'm a lot better, but I still like, there's times where I still like take my phone out and Costa will be like, listen, no. And she'll like, and I'm like, oh yeah, sorry. Yes. Put it away. I don't need to text that person back right now. So for me, it's being in the now and really starting to listen more. I want to feel comfortable just throwing on a saddle, getting on and going for a ride by myself. And being in nature with either Rain or Costa to ride. Right now I only ride Costa. So just being in that confidence and getting over my own personal fear and trusting, I guess our fears are like trusting ourselves more than trusting them, right? Like trusting that you can handle whatever comes about. And so those are my huge goals right now. And just, keep trying to listen and hear more, and just being is the main thing. Just being in the presence is important.
Well, I just feel compelled to say that when we started this interview and you were talking about where some of your fears with horses came from after the birth of your son, I believe, I thought how lovely fear can be. Like basically that fear was like, I want to be here for my son. My son needs me. I mean, it was such a beautiful, maternally motivated sense of survival. like I need to survive. I have this big purpose. And I echo all of the things of wanting to work with our fears. I'm not in a place in my life where I want to be fearless.
Right.
I've really learned like my fear is useful to me and is motivated, because I actually think for many women, we have, I shouldn't say women, men, me personally, I can speak for myself. I think there have been many times in my life when I have not honored my sense of need to survive.
Yes.
Just like, so anyway, I just had to say that because I really think that was a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful fear to have. And as a mother, I understand the importance of that.
Thank you.
And
Yeah.
it's primal. It's it's very, very, very primal. So,
Right.
one of the things that Amy had wanted to hear from her students, and I just have no doubt that you'll have all sorts of wise things to say, is, well, and you practice it because you have people who are not horse people and you introduce them to your horses. When you do that and they're going out to be with the horses, how do you set them up for that? What what words of wisdom do you share with them the first time they interact with a horse?
I kind of go over, safety protocols, like where to stand, where not to stand, that kind of thing. But I also, my big thing is being respectful, like really honoring the space around you. And we talk about if somebody just comes up in your classroom or comes to your bedroom or living room and just is like, hey, how are you? You would like take a step back. Or we've all had those people that talk really close to you. And you're like, okay, you take a step back, they don't get it. You might turn yourself a little bit. So we talk about like body positioning, because there was like, and I learn as I go, like how the horses respond to certain things. And one of the things I didn't always remember, but I'm pretty good about it now, is really like closing off myself, like as an invitation to them to come in. Am I standing more sideways? Am I like asking them to come in? Am I like, putting up a wall? And so we kind of talk about that, but I start off small at first and I let the horses do the teaching.
Oh.
So if we're on a long line and I said, okay, well, we're going to ask them to come into you now. I don't give any direction then. I want to see like what they do. So because if sometimes I feel, and I think Amy's really good at this, sometimes, I've been in clinics where people want her to give the step by step, right? And, but how, as an outsider looking in, how can you do that? Like, sometimes she can start you off, but as you're working through, to be able to learn in that moment and being like, okay, well, this is what I saw. Why don't we try this? That's kind of what I'm doing with them. So like, I'm like, okay, what if you stand up straight, change your body positioning, and like send her a picture. Send her a picture of what you want, what the outcome is going to be. And normally it really works for them. I don't give too much direction other than safety because I really feel that everybody has their own way of communicating. And when we stop that vibration of communication, then it doesn't help them expand, like it doesn't help them really dig into their own senses to know what's coming up next. And that can hopefully transfer to them to other things. Like another lesson that I love teaching the kids is what we call desensitization, right? Like we all have sometime in our life had that icky feeling in our belly where we either have to give a talk in class or we're starting a new job or we have an interview. Like at some point in our life, we have all felt nervous and upset. So animals feel the same way. Like, can they trust you? Like, what vibe are you setting off to them? So I really tried to have them check themselves. Like, if you're not going to be confident, like I kind of like, you got to fake it to make it a little bit, guys. Like, you want them to come into you. Well, you got to fake like you're an awesome person to come into. Like, like, so it's that kind of thing. And then we'll like expand on that a little bit more. Like once they start learning that kind of communication, then, okay, well, can we have them go over here to try to search for a treat, let's say, or can you have them follow you here? What if you ask them just to back up where you're standing without using anything? Like, how would you do that? So I put them in situations where they have to use their inner voice without the whip, the hands. Like body language is such an important thing. And I learned so much of that from Amy, like even how I present myself and stand, you know, I think once you're in that space a lot more, your awareness about everything around you opens up more. And it allows you to function through life in a calmer way because you're aware of more things around you. And you can be grateful because you're in that space more. You're living in a grateful space then. And a survival, really.
Oh, I so love that. One of the funny experiences I had here, which speaks to that, is we were doing a simulation and I was with Leilani, one of Amy's longtime students, so skilled and beautiful. And I was supposed to be the human and she was the horse. And she was going to give me feedback about my body language. And she said, well, you're nothing but a head.
Yeah, right. It's true.
Of course,
right.
For many, many years, I have been nothing but a mouth and a brain. I mean, like, and it doesn't go anywhere down. And oh my gosh, that is also one of the beautiful, beautiful things, because we live in bodies like horses live in bodies.
Yes.
And horses don't have the they can't disembody themselves very easily. They don't have fake words to use, and these big brains to spit. They just are who they are, and they show us through their body if we are skilled and able enough to begin to feel that. So I love that I think probably is one of the reasons horses are such a balm for young people who are traumatized, because we just have to learn to not feel some things to survive at certain points in our life.
And they mirror us so much, right? Like even if you think you have it all together, when they're acting a little way, you're like, And I have learned to self-check on myself, because I'll give an example. The last clinic I was in with Amy, I was saddling up, and everyone knows I'm a little nervous with riding, right? So I'm saddling up, I'm like, there's nothing to be afraid of. Like, I have rode her how many times? I'm going to saddle her up. I'm going to just I had this whole image in my head. I'm going to put the bareback pad on, and I'm going to get on, and I'm going to walk her out. It's going to be amazing. I felt it. I was good to go, and I'm saddling, and she's dancing. I had to breathe. And then, I wasn't even on her yet. I'm just putting the bareback pad on her. And Amy looked at me and she's like, Marcia, is this you or is this her? I'm like, well, it's not me. Why would that be me? I have this beautiful image in my head. We're going to walk. It's going to be great. And she's like, okay. So she came over and she put everything on, and Costa just stood there. I'm like, oh, it's me. Reality check, right? Sometimes we need them. And I think that the horse is so good at giving you that. And they don't fault you for it. They're like,
right,
girl, pull yourself together.
Right.
So you can have an awesome ride. And then they just you pull yourself together, you get on. She's like, you good? Good. Okay, let's ride. They really can self-check you, even when you don't want to be real with yourself, and you grow from that.
I have to so laugh at that, because the phrase "join me," when you're I'm asking my horse to join me, and I've realized that phrase for me has taken on new meaning. It's like, literally put yourself together. Make sure your thoughts, your heart, your body, like it's all in the same place. Like join me up here and then we can join together. But so
Right.
often I want to be a certain way, but I'm just not there. And my horse feels that and it can't happen that way. So my particular horse has really been masterful at showing me that in sometimes very humiliating ways. But hey, that's that's the nature.
Right.
I should use the word.
You learn to just,
Yeah.
you learn to, okay, I got it. Thanks for the lesson. I'll work on it.
Exactly.
And move forward and not judge yourself, right?
Exactly. It's and to, like you say, to actually be extremely grateful that there is such a gentle teacher to just show me without judgment.
Right.
Look again.
Right.
Look again at yourself. It's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And one of the things that I really love when Amy teaches is, like I said, she watches and then adds as you're doing it. Like, I don't function well with somebody that is yelling stuff out to me on what to do, when to do it right now and then. Like, it's truly a lesson of you two. And she has such a unique talent to sit back and really get to learn your language with your horse, and then she doesn't shut that down. She helps you build it up and open it more so that you can hear more and the communication is clear than this muffled reaction kind of thing.
I agree. She is masterful at that. And also in line with that, and there's you were talking about it earlier, the way she doesn't, I think it's because she knows you can't really learn by her giving you the answers. Neither can the horse. And that's not the way the deep learning and the change is going to come about. It has to be experiential. And I appreciate how much restraint she shows as a teacher, because I think often teachers aren't patient enough to let the learning happen. And then they just try to give it to you. And then that actually doesn't really work. So I really, really appreciate that about how she teaches. And of course, it is miraculous how she can intuit what the horse and the human, what their conversation is now and where it might be able to go. And I don't think she would say she knows she doesn't know specifically where it can go. She just knows that it can go somewhere. So,
right. And I think that's what's so special about her clinics too, and why, like, in a way you get a personal lesson from majority of the clinic, right? And if it's not your time to work at that moment, like, you'll work together, yes, but then you have your individual moments. But as someone who's not in that horse moment, to sit back and watch like the growth and how these experiences play out is like, just, you're learning just as much. And what I find unique is you can have someone who, like when I first started, I knew like nothing. I was lucky if I didn't even know if I had my saddle on all the right way, and then you have someone who their horse is performing these amazing things and you're like, whoa, but she can balance any kind of horsemanship within your clinic. So you could have like closest 21. I could have a 21-year-old horse that's calm and like fine. And then I could have a 2-year-old or 3-year-old and the same time. And we're all speaking a similar language, but different. And it always works out. Like, everybody learns from everybody, and everyone is always super supportive. Like, any clinic I've been at, I've made like amazing friends and people that we support each other outside of clinic. There's no competition. it's just you're growing as a human being, and you're a human being that likes horses, and it doesn't matter where you are at in your journey. You could be growing, you could be, it doesn't matter your age, it doesn't, like, it's just, she's very good at being in the now that whole time.
I agree. And her breadth as a horsewoman allows her to keep everybody safe despite that broad range of circumstances, which I would say is actually not that, that's not that easy, and probably not available.
Yeah.
We'll have to, most clinics, there have been more of a prescription because just the need to keep people safe at different levels, but
Right.
it really does have an amazing way of setting that up. I would agree with that. That you actually just naturally touched on some of the other things that I wanted to ask you about, and I think we can probably wrap up pretty soon, but I'm wondering if there's anything else that you wanted to share to other students and potential students of Amy's.
I mean, for me as a student of Amy, it's been an amazing journey, and a journey that's not done. That, Amy doesn't just have this one style of horsemanship. Each year Amy grows and she learns from her students, and then that opens up this whole other world of wow. So if you're a new student coming in, like, you don't have to be at the certain level of being in the now. You could be just starting your journey, and know that every year, if you come back every year, you will learn something new every year, and you'll be like, and I also feel that because of how she teaches, you might not be ready for a piece of it at the time, and then as you're learning, you're like, oh, like, she could say the same thing to you 5 times, and then finally it clicks, or finally you're like ready to hear it, and you're like, oh my goodness, that just changed my whole view on this. And you're definitely gonna want to come back and experience it. Amy has a gift with people and horses. She can, sense and hear things with your horse that not many people can, and you're looking for those answers to move forward, and she can, most likely help you with that. And a lot of that is changing how we interact in those moments. And she has a different way of relaying information that will help you grow.
Yes, agreed, 100%. Agreed. Marcia, it has been such a pleasure. Oh, I hope we can do this again more casually, and maybe not, have to record the whole thing and, to a certain extent put on like some formality, which is fun to do every once in a while, but
right.
But I sure have appreciated this conversation and who you are, and getting to know you some, and I hope we talk again soon.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. And
yeah.
yeah.